The battlefield was burning. Smoke and fire painted the sky red. He heard the scream of the alien girl, a sound filled with fear. Shards of metal from the explosion rushed toward her like knives. Without thinking, the human ran. His body moved faster than his mind. He pushed her down, using himself as a shield. The shrapnel tore into him. Pain exploded in every nerve. His vision grew dark. The last thing he saw was the alien girl's tearful eyes. Then silence. But when his eyes opened again, something was wrong. The voices around him were not human. The shapes leaning over him were not human. And his own skin, it was glowing. The ground shook as fire spread across the field. The sky was no longer calm. Thick smoke rose, covering the stars above. Lights flashed in the distance, some bright like falling suns, some small like sparks in the dark. In the middle of it all, a human stood, tired and covered with dust. He could hear strange sounds, not like the voices of his own people, but cries and shouts in a language he did not know. He turned his head and saw her, the alien girl. She was small compared to the others of her kind, and her eyes carried fear, but also something softer, something he could not explain. She looked lost, as if the world around her was not safe anymore. She tried to move, but her steps were slow, and her face showed that she did not know where to go. Then it happened. A loud blast echoed, and the air filled with sharp pieces of burning metal, rushing in every direction. Time seemed to slow. He saw the alien girl freeze in place, unable to protect herself. The shining pieces were coming for her, faster than the wind. His mind had no time to think. His body simply moved. He pushed himself forward, running across the broken ground. His only thought was simple: protect her. He reached her side just as the burning fragments closed in. Without hesitation, he threw himself over her, using his own body as a shield. The noise grew louder, and heat surrounded him. He felt a deep pressure across his chest, but he did not cry out. He only held on, keeping the alien girl safe beneath him. Her eyes widened, tears rolling down her cheeks as she looked up at him. He smiled faintly, even as his strength began to fade. The world around him became silent, the smoke thicker, the lights fading from his sight. His breath grew slower. The last thing he saw before darkness covered his eyes was her face, scared, but full of a strange trust, as if she could not believe a human would do this for her. Then there was nothing. For a long time, he floated in silence. No sound, no pain, no world, only emptiness. He thought perhaps this was the end. But slowly, very slowly, warmth returned. It was gentle, almost like sunlight on skin. He heard voices, soft at first, then clearer. But these voices were not human. They carried a tone unlike anything he had known, words flowing like music, strange yet full of meaning. His eyes opened. At first, the light was too bright. He blinked, trying to see. The smoke was gone. The fire was gone. He was no longer lying on the broken ground. Instead, he rested on something smooth, glowing faintly beneath him, like a bed made of light. Shapes leaned over him. Not human shapes. Tall, slender, their skin shining with colors his eyes had never seen before. Their eyes glowed softly, filled with curiosity, filled with something like fear. They whispered to each other in that same flowing language, their voices rising and falling like a song. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He tried to move, but his arms felt heavy. The alien girl was there too. She sat close to him, her eyes wet with tears, but she was smiling. She touched his hand gently, as if to assure him he was safe, but then he noticed something. His hand did not feel the same. His skin was no longer only human skin. A faint glow shimmered across it, as if part of him had changed. He lifted it slowly, staring at the strange light. His heart began to race. He looked around again. Nothing here was human. Not the walls, not the lights, not the figures standing over him. Even the air itself seemed different, humming with an energy he could feel in his chest. He had gone into the blast to save the alien girl. He had closed his eyes expecting darkness. But now, he was awake, surrounded by beings he did not know, in a place beyond his understanding. And as he lay there, weak but alive, one thought came to him with chilling clarity. Nothing around him was human. He opened his eyes slowly, the glow above him still too bright. His chest rose and fell as he tried to understand if this was real or only some dream. The soft bed beneath him hummed with a gentle warmth, not like cloth or stone, but something living, something that carried energy. He moved his hand slightly, and once again, he saw the faint light on his skin. It was not his imagination. A shimmer ran along his arm like a reflection of starlight. The figures around him leaned closer. They were tall and graceful, their forms smooth and flowing as if shaped by light itself. Their eyes glowed softly, colors shifting with every breath. They whispered in low voices, words he could not understand, but the tone told him they were speaking about him. Some voices carried curiosity, others carried fear. He turned his head and saw her, the alien girl. She sat close, her eyes shining with relief. When she noticed he was awake, her face lit with hope. She leaned forward and gently touched his arm, as if to tell him he was safe. Her touch was light, yet filled with emotion. He remembered how she had looked when he shielded her, how she had cried, thinking he would never open his eyes again. He wanted to speak, but his throat was dry. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The alien girl noticed and brought a small vessel shaped like crystal, glowing faintly in her hands. She held it to his lips, and cool water touched his mouth. He drank slowly, and the dryness faded. His voice was soft, uncertain. "Where am I?" The girl tilted her head, listening. She seemed to understand the question, even if the words were not hers. She spoke gently, her voice musical, but he could not grasp the meaning. Yet something inside told him she was saying, "Safe now. You are safe." He looked again at his hands. The glow would not go away. He lifted his arm, and for a moment, the light spread, running through his skin like threads of silver fire. The alien figures stepped back, whispering faster. Their glowing eyes showed surprise, maybe even fear. He felt his heart race. This was not normal. This was not human. He tried to sit up, but his body felt heavier than before. His muscles carried a strength he had never known, yet they were not fully his own. When he pressed his hand against the bed, the surface rippled like liquid, yet held firm beneath his weight. The alien girl placed her hand on his shoulder, urging him to rest. She spoke again, her voice soft but serious. He wished he could understand her words. She looked at him as if she carried a secret, as if she knew something he did not. One of the taller figures stepped closer. Unlike the others, this one wore markings across its skin that glowed brighter. The figure studied him carefully, then turned to the others and spoke in a slow, commanding tone. The room fell silent. Even the alien girl lowered her gaze. The human felt his breath grow shallow. He could not understand the words, but he could feel the weight of them. The way the others looked at him changed, their eyes narrowing, their movements slower, more careful. They were no longer only curious. They were cautious. He lay back against the bed, his mind full of questions. Why had they saved him? Why was his body different now? And what did the elders' words mean? The alien girl leaned closer once more. She placed her hand over his glowing one, her touch warm and steady. For a moment, her eyes seemed to speak more than her voice ever could. She was telling him not to be afraid. But as he looked at the figures surrounding him, as he saw the way they watched him with careful eyes, he knew one thing for certain. Whatever they had done to save him, he was no longer the same. Something inside him had changed. And as he lay there, with the alien girl holding his hand, he realized a truth that chilled him. He was awake, but nothing around him was human, not even himself. He lay awake for a long time, staring at the soft light above him. His mind was caught between questions and silence. The room hummed gently, like it was alive, and every sound seemed to carry meaning. The alien girl stayed by his side, never moving far. She watched him closely, her eyes filled with something he could not explain. It was not only concern. It was more, like she felt a responsibility, like she knew what he had given for her. When he tried to rise, she placed her hand against his chest, shaking her head. He understood the gesture, rest, wait, but he could not rest, not with the strange glow in his skin and the way the other figures had looked at him. One of them returned the elder with the brighter markings. The others stepped aside as it entered, and the space grew quiet. Its eyes were deep and calm, glowing softly with wisdom. The alien girl lowered her gaze in respect, and the human understood that this being held power among them. The elder approached slowly, watching him with steady eyes. Then it spoke. The words flowed like music, long and drawn, carrying weight. The human did not understand the language, but the tone reached him. It was not anger. It was not comfort either. It was something in between, something like judgment. The alien girl answered in the same language, her voice trembling but strong. She gestured toward him, her hands moving quickly as if she was trying to defend him. The elder listened quietly, then turned its gaze back to him. For a long moment, nothing was said. The silence was heavier than words. Finally, the elder raised its hand. Light flickered from its palm, forming shapes in the air, images of stars, planets, and battles he did not know. The figures moved like memory, like history. He watched in silence as scenes played out before him. He saw alien ships rising, worlds crumbling, and figures like himself caught in the middle. The alien girl looked at him, then touched the glowing light of his arm, showing him something he could not deny. His body was no longer the same. She spoke softly, her words simple, but this time he understood through her expression. "You are changed." The elder nodded slowly, confirming her words. It lifted its hand again, and this time, the image in the air was not of stars or battles. It was of him lying broken, then being lifted into a chamber filled with light. He watched the glowing threads weaving through his body, repairing what was lost, replacing what could not be saved. He froze. The truth sank in. They had rebuilt him. He was no longer only human. The girl's hand tightened around his. Her eyes begged him to stay calm, to not let fear take over. But his thoughts raced. What did this mean? Was he still himself, or was he something else now? The elder's eyes softened as it spoke again. This time, the words were directed not at the girl but at him. Though he could not understand, he felt the weight of them. The elder was telling him something important, something that would change everything. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, translating slowly in broken human words she had learned long ago. Her voice was uncertain but clear. "They say, you are the key to survival." The words struck him like cold wind. He tried to speak, but the questions tangled in his throat. Key to what? Why him? He had only tried to save her. He had never asked for this. The elder stepped closer, its glow reflecting on his skin. It reached out and placed its hand above his chest, not touching but close enough that he felt warmth. For a moment, the glow of his skin grew brighter, as if answering to the elder's presence. Gasps rose from the others in the room. Some stepped back, their eyes full of caution, while others leaned forward with awe. It was clear they were not only curious anymore, they were afraid, or maybe hopeful. The human looked down at his glowing hands, then back at the alien girl. She met his gaze and whispered softly, her voice trembling, "You are not only human now, you are something more." He felt his heart beat faster, the weight of her words pressing against him. He wanted to deny it, to believe he was the same man who had shielded her on the battlefield. But deep inside, he knew the truth. His body was not the same, his future was not the same, and whatever the elder meant by the key, it was already too late to turn back. The room grew still again. The elder spoke one last time before leaving, its voice echoing like a song fading into silence. The others followed, leaving him alone with the girl. She leaned close, her hand resting on his chest where the glow was strongest. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "They saved you, but they also changed you, and now everything depends on you." He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to calm his racing thoughts. When he opened them again, the glow in his skin had not faded. It was there to stay. And for the first time, he wondered if saving her had not only changed his fate, but the fate of everyone around him. He stayed awake long into the night. If night was even what this strange place could be called. The walls never darkened. They glowed softly, as if the room itself breathed. Time felt different here. He counted his breaths, listened to the hum around him, and thought about the words he had heard. The key to survival. He did not know what that meant, but the weight of it pressed heavily on his chest. The alien girl had not left his side. Sometimes she whispered in her own language, soft sounds meant to calm him. and sometimes she simply held his hand. In those moments, he felt steadier, but still not whole. His hands, his arms, his very body glowed faintly. When he tried to ignore it, the light only grew brighter. He felt stronger, but not in a way that belonged to him. At last, the doors opened, and the elder returned. This time, the chamber was filled with many figures, all tall and graceful, their markings glowing like streams of starlight. They surrounded him in a circle, their eyes fixed on him. Some showed respect, but others carried doubt. He could feel their unease. The elder spoke slowly, its voice carrying across the chamber like a steady river. The alien girl translated in broken human words, enough for him to understand. They will test you. They must know if you are with them or not. His heart grew heavier. He wanted to say he was only a man, that he had no place in their tests or councils. But he looked at their faces, the mixture of fear and hope, and he knew his choice no longer belonged to him alone. The girl held his hand tighter, her eyes begging him to stay calm. "Do not fear," she whispered. But even she looked uncertain. The guards stepped forward. They were taller than the rest, their eyes sharper, their movements precise. They motioned for him to rise. He tried to stand, and to his surprise, his legs carried him with ease. He had expected weakness, but his body felt alive, almost eager. His steps echoed on the glowing floor as the guards led him down long corridors, filled with alien patterns that moved like flowing water. The hall opened into a vast chamber. The air vibrated as if the room itself waited. In the center was a space surrounded by tall lights, their glow reaching upward like pillars. The figures from the council gathered around, watching closely. The elder's voice carried again, deep and resonant. The girl translated softly, "They will place you in a trial, not to harm you, but to see what you truly are." He swallowed hard, his thoughts racing. What could they want from him? He was only human, yet no longer fully human. His glowing hands trembled at his sides. The trial began without warning. From the far side of the chamber, a figure stepped forward. It was another alien, marked with patterns that glowed more fiercely than the rest. Its eyes locked on him, calm but challenging. The crowd fell silent. The alien moved gracefully, circling him. It was not an attack, but a test of presence. He felt his heart beat faster. His body, however, moved differently than before. His stance grew steady, his balance firm. He could feel energy flowing beneath his skin, guiding his steps. The alien circled closer, its movements swift. Instinctively, he raised his arm, and the glow surged through him. A barrier of light appeared between them, shimmering like crystal. Gasps rose from the watchers. Even he froze in surprise, staring at the shield that had come from his own body. The alien challenger touched the barrier, then stepped back with a slow nod. It spoke words he could not understand, but the crowd reacted with awe. Some looked fearful, others amazed. The elder stepped forward again, its voice calm but filled with gravity. The girl translated, her voice trembling with emotion. "They see you now. You carry both their strength and your own. Some call you a gift, others call you a danger." He lowered his arm, the glow fading, though his hands still trembled. His breath was uneven, his mind struggling to accept what had happened. He had never sought power, never wished for it. All he had done was protect the girl. Yet now the council looked at him as if he were more than a man. The elder raised a hand, and silence returned. It spoke words heavy with finality. The girl leaned close, her voice soft but filled with weight as she translated, "They will watch you. They will not yet decide. You must prove yourself, not only in strength, but in choice." He stood there, surrounded by glowing eyes. The trial complete, but the judgment still uncertain. He could feel the pressure of every gaze upon him. The girl squeezed his hand gently, grounding him, reminding him he was not alone. But as the council departed, their whispers echoing like waves, he knew the truth. His life was no longer his own. He had been pulled into something greater, something unknown. And whatever choice they expected from him, it would not only decide his fate, but perhaps theirs as well. He drifted between waking and dreaming, caught in a haze where time felt broken. His body felt heavy, but his mind was alive, racing with questions. Where was he? Why did the alien girl's voice echo so clearly inside his head? even though she wasn't speaking. He opened his eyes, and the world above him shimmered with lights that weren't from Earth. The ceiling glowed faintly, almost breathing with a pulse, as if the entire place was alive. He sat up slowly, every muscle aching, and realized he wasn't in a room made of walls. It was more like the inside of some vast creature, organic and humming. The alien girl stood at a distance, her eyes wide with relief when she saw him awake. She whispered his name softly, but the sound traveled through his thoughts instead of his ears. He tried to ask her what had happened, but his words never formed. Instead, she answered him directly in his mind, telling him he had crossed a threshold no human ever had. The shrapnel, the blast, the pain, it hadn't only wounded him, it had changed him. Something inside his blood had been awakened, and now the very place he stood in recognized him as one of its own. He rose to his feet, unsteady but stronger than he should have been. His senses sharpened. He could hear the faint hum of distant chambers, smell a strange sweetness in the air, and feel vibrations in the ground like whispers beneath his skin. The alien girl stepped closer and touched his arm, her touch grounding him. She told him he had been chosen, not by her people, but by something older, something hidden deep within this living world. As he walked with her through the glowing corridors, he noticed figures watching him from the shadows. They weren't fully solid, almost like echoes of beings that once lived here. Their gazes followed him, and for the first time, he realized they weren't watching her, they were watching him. He asked why, but she only looked down, as if afraid to tell him. The silence stretched until she finally said that by saving her, he had taken into himself a force her kind could not control. He paused, unsettled, yet drawn forward by the strange power thrumming in his chest. The alien girl explained that her people had feared this place for generations. They called it forbidden, cursed, a realm where even their bravest never returned. But he had not only survived the blast, he had awakened here. That made him different, more than human, yet not entirely alien either. The walls pulsed brighter as he passed, as though the world itself was greeting him. He felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing on him, and a shiver ran down his spine. The alien girl whispered again. This time, her voice trembling, she said they weren't alone. Something else had felt his awakening, something that had been waiting. Do you want me to continue with part 6, building the final climax with suspense and emotional payoff? You said, start with part 6 more unique and lengthy and give answer in chat. And give answer without title or as ma violent word use. Karnachet said. The ground beneath him seemed to breathe, sending a soft rhythm through his feet as if urging him to keep moving forward. The air shimmered faintly, carrying a sound that was not quite music, not quite words, but something in between, like a voice hidden inside the world itself. He slowed his steps, his chest tight with the strange energy pulsing through him, and he realized he wasn't afraid anymore. He was connected. The alien girl walked beside him, her expression a mixture of awe and worry. She admitted in a quiet tone that her people had legends about this place. It was said to awaken only once in 1,000 lifetimes, and never for one of her kind. Yet here stood a human, chosen in a way no one had ever been before. She reached for his hand, and when her fingers brushed his, the glowing walls brightened, responding not to her, but to him. He asked what this meant, but before she could answer, the chamber ahead opened wide like a blooming flower. A vast hall stretched out before them, lined with arches of living light. At its center floated a sphere, golden and radiant, pulsing as though it contained the heartbeat of a star. The sight pulled him forward without thought, and as he stepped into the hall, the sphere flared, washing over him with warmth and recognition. The alien girl called his name, her voice trembling. She warned him that once he touched it, nothing would ever be the same. He hesitated, yet deep inside, he knew the choice had already been made the moment he saved her. Slowly, he lifted his hand. The light reached for him, not with force, but with welcome, as though it had been waiting centuries just for this moment. When his fingers brushed the glow, a wave of images filled his mind, visions of galaxies being born, civilizations rising and falling, and echoes of voices that felt both ancient and familiar. He saw humans and aliens, side by side, yet always apart. Until now, the energy surged into him, and the world itself whispered that he was the bridge. the one who carried both worlds within him. The alien girl dropped to her knees, overwhelmed, whispering that no one would believe what she was seeing. But he turned to her, his eyes no longer just human, glowing faintly with the same light as the hall. He promised her softly that he would not let this power turn him into something else, that he was still himself, still the one who had chosen to shield her. The hall dimmed back to calm, as though satisfied with its gift. The whispers faded into a gentle silence, leaving him changed but steady. The alien girl rose and stood by his side, her hand finding his once more. Together they walked out of the living chamber, not as savior and saved, but as equals, carrying something far greater than either could have imagined. Outside, the horizon shimmered with a new dawn. The alien girl looked at him with quiet certainty and said that their journey was only beginning. And deep in his heart, he knew she was right. This was not an ending, but the first step into a story that would bind them forever.